Level 90, a heartless hypothesis. The bespectacled technician is enjoying a refreshing harbor breeze. That's blown the cobwebs away. Time to return to work. Goodness me, look who it is. How incredibly serendipitous that I would run into you of all people. I was part of the team which designed the Ragnarok, you see, and we've recently begun the process of combing through the vessel's flight log data. The primary objective of your journey to Ultima Thule was to save our star and countless others, of course, but it also provided us with an invaluable trove of information, records of places and events we could only dream of. Your safe return gave us much to be thankful for. As it so happens, one of the things we pulled from the log was a transmission of unknown origin, something the ship must have intercepted during its flight. We believe it to be an audio message, but even our most talented linguists have been unable to decipher the language. For a while there, it seemed we must accept defeat, but today may be the day that we finally solve the mystery. If you were so inclined, would you care to come along to Thomazine? And it seems fitting to have one of Ragnarok's original passengers present to hear history being made. Go to Aporia. Ah, there you are. This is where we are to meet the engineers from Garland Ironworks, who I am told potentially hold the key to unlocking our mystery transmission. They should be along at any moment. Sorry we're late. We had some trouble finding the right... Gods, is that you? Pigs. Yes, the woman herself. I ran into her at the harbor and thought if anyone deserved to hear this message deciphered, it was Zilla Lazate. No argument here, but bugger me if you don't have a knack for being in the right place at the right time. This actually has more to do with you than you might think, so please do stick around. Shall we pick up from where we left off then? As I was saying, we think this transmission the Ragnarok intercepted is a message of some kind, albeit in a language entirely alien to our ears. Alien being the operative word here, considering we received the message out in the great expanse, its origin was likely some distant star. Fortunately, our list of off-world allies is presently rather short, thus we were resigned to the fact that the meaning behind the message would remain beyond our understanding. One of my colleagues, however, refused to give up. She remembered the Ironworks engineers who had been so helpful in the construction of the Ragnarok and turned to them for insight into our seemingly impossible problem. You know what Wedge said when he heard what was going on? We should have Omega listen to it. I bet it can tell us what the message means. Not the Omega you beat in the Rift, of course. He's talking about the toy that trundles around with Alpha, the little model we made. We originally designed it to follow a chosen target and not much else, but I've seen it act in ways that, well, it's like it has a mind of its own. And I got to thinking about those documents your lot sent to Chief, the full report on the final days. And the part about Omega civilization, it said that people discovered how to convert the mind into data and store it outside the body. Timing being what it was, I wonder if Omega didn't somehow transfer its consciousness into our model right before you put an end to the real one. Alpha. In an effort to get to the bottom of that, as well as take a crack at this indecipherable message, we decided to make some modifications. With help from Labyrinthos technicians, we've upgraded our toy Omega with Fully functional vocalization module. We played the transmission for Omega, and I think it's ready to share. Are you in there, Omega? Ahem. Hello. Omega. Affirmative. If by Omega you were referring to my consciousness rather than my entire former chassis existing inside this considerably smaller frame. Prediction. You will formulate several misconceptions. These I shall preemptively dismiss based on the following facts. 1. Vocalization module aside, this chassis remains unmodified from the design constructed by the engineers Biggs and Wedge. I evaluate its combat capabilities to be on par with a mortal infant. 2. The mechanism which allowed me to perform an emergency transfer of my consciousness was installed in my previous body. With the destruction of that body, I am rendered incapable of replicating such a feat. Should this current material form be destroyed or cease to function, all cognitive awareness or presence I possess will also be lost. Conclusion. I present no threat to you or your star, nor do my projections indicate the necessity to inflict harm. In the fraction of a moment before my annihilation in the rift, I re-examined my directives. If I am to fulfill my purpose as an evolving construct, then I must continue my journey for improvement. For as long as I exist, I must acquire this heart of yours, this strength of the soul. Oh, there you have it, and it's not wrong about its combat capabilities. It'd be more likely to damage itself than the thing it was trying to attack. Let's not forget the reason we brought you here in the first place. What about the transmission they played for you? Could you recognize the language? Affirmative. It was transmitted in Pangalactic Basic. Pangalactic Basic? Common language and comparatively extensive usage throughout the worlds we have conquered. Which means you can finally tell us what the message said. That is a language you understand, yes? I understand it perfectly. I am fluent in over 6 million distinct dialectical codings. But my cooperation in this matter, however, is conditional. Collaboration. Your Chief Sid utilizes the floor as part of his unorthodox filing system, which allowed me to scan the report on the final days. I'm aware that my home star, the one you called Alphatron, was obliterated in the aftermath of Sir and Meteon's meeting. The existence of Dynamis is not previously factored into my projections, but I now comprehend the concept in theory. It fails to compute as why the Omicrons were not immune to its effects. Dynamis should have no influence on a race which possesses no heart. Yet Sir expressed to Meteon a desire to cease existing. Illogical. I must pursue this anomaly further until the full equation becomes clear to me. I must analyze all the elements of the final days and deepen my understanding of the heart's intangible properties. To expedite this process, I require an external interpretation of those sections of the report which continue to produce errors in my calculations. I request the assistance of Zillia Lazalthi as one who experienced the ravages of ultimate despair on multiple fronts and displayed immeasurable heart in engineering my defeat. She is the optimal choice to fulfill this role. You either agree to your conditions or you tell us nothing. I'm sorry to put you in a spot like this. If you have the time and the patience to spare, we'd all be grateful if you could humor the toy's demands. As Alpha dozed off, I suppose the subject was a bit technical. About yourself, Alpha. You must listen to and consider these matters, even as I must. Wait. Why don't you make the trip out of it? You know, actually visit the places that has the things Omega wants to ask about. It'll make explaining stuff easier, for one, and also help keep Alpha awake and alert. I see you have chosen the mutually beneficial option. Logical. Setting aside the matter of Sir, there are 3 elements of the report on which I desire clarification. First of these concerns the progression of the final days in Radzatan. I recognize no pattern in those who succumbed to the transformation and those who did not. That's a bit of a trek. If you wanted to chat with the locals, how about we lend you an airship? You do not require such outmoded technology. Zilli's teleportation spell is the most efficient option for long-distance travel. His chassis is a model, essentially a toy, and Alpha, despite his organic composition, is indistinguishable from a stuffed doll. Conclusion, we qualify as material possessions. Pick us up and you can teleport the three of us to our destination. In Omega's journey for answers. Yes. Sentence indicate we have arrived in Razatan. An objective, identify factors for resistance to involuntary transformation. Hypothesis, unaltered survivors of the final days will display significant strength of heart. Confirming this theory will require the cooperation of live subjects. Where is the ward designated for residential habitation? Understood, comma, set as our sub-destination. Please take the lead and select the subjects we are to interview. Omega and Alpha are now accompanying you. Keep them at your side in order to proceed with quest objectives. You can leave your quest companions behind by entering a different area by speaking with them and selecting the option to part ways. If you wish to have your companions join you again, return and speak with them at the original location. Laggy. Discuss the stairs. Warning, please avoid stairs whenever possible. My projections indicate high risk probability for accidental slippage leading to catastrophic structural damage. Stepped inclines also increase my energy consumption by 63%. In mortal terms, they tire me out. Taking into account the difference in individual limb length, the design is inherently flawed. A convenient step height for one is an exhausting trial for another. Were I to oversee the civic design of this settlement, I would construct a sloped conveyor belt which enabled automatic traversal, zero personal energy expenditure. Just the stairs. Quay. Alpha chirps enthusiastically, apparently unfazed by the prospect of climbing the stairs. Guess we have to go up the stairs, don't we? Probably could have just teleported, right? Melancholy man. Superhero. Are you a traveler? Please, if you have a moment, I could use an outsider's perspective. You see, I was one of those who sought to escape the madness plaguing the world by fleeing to the moon. Not that we ever went, in the end. So here I am, recently returned from Charlotte, except now things are strained between my sister and I since she chose to stay and I chose to leave. I asked her to help me find work and she suggests I look somewhere that isn't Thavnair, as if I wanted to abandon my home. It made me so angry. Your point is unclear. You elected to relocate to the star's satellite, thus your relative now perceives you in a negative light? Your sibling's judgment is an error. Based on the information made available to Hanish citizens, your decision to withdraw to the moon was both logical and correct. Conversely, the decision to remain in Razatan, despite low probability of survival, defies explanation. Perhaps her reasoning pathways are faulty. That's right. I'm not quite sure what you're saying, but I'm right, aren't I? Or so I'd like to think. The problem is I understand why my sister feels this way. I almost decided against going myself. Even then, I wasn't sure that leaving behind everything I loved was the right choice, and with the way it all turned out, Lissai. Mati. Oh, hello again. You're the one who came to ask me questions about Kalza. I'm glad to see you looking well after all that unpleasantness. I remember the burning skies and hearing the screams, but truth be told, I'm still confused as to what actually happened. I only know it wasn't unusual for entire families to go missing. Many of my neighbors' houses lie empty even now. Kazal's place is one of them. He had no close relatives to speak of, and I heard that it was members of the consortium who came to remove his belongings. What a terrible thing to have to do. Terrible? Kazal's passing was recorded in the report. Clearing out his domicile and readying it for new habitation seems an appropriate reallocation of resources. Dear me, what a clever little contraption, but of course I'm not against making use of his quarters. That would be wasteful. Simply that Kazal was always such a vigorous person, all that passion, all those dreams suddenly gone. I feel the same sorrow for everyone who was lost, seeing the remnants of those vibrant lives packed away in boxes. That is what I mean by terrible. Hey, don't I know you? Yes, after the beasts were taken care of, you told me to join everyone in the square. Thanks to you, I was there when Victor gave his speech and I found out who Varshan really was. Shame we don't get to play like we used to, but Mama says Vitra has been busy putting the city back in order. Maybe I can work for him one day when I'm a man grown. Vitra, Midgardsormr's offspring, yes, and this child wishes to put himself at the worm's command that he might make his own contribution to society. Pattern emerges. I predict that Hanish survivors are those who had ingested Vitra's blood and became his draconic minions. The dragons were no match for our civilization's might. Their combat capabilities are not to be underestimated. It's unlikely they would experience emotions of dread or uncertainty as exhibited by lesser beings in times of undue stress. Dragons? I'm not a dragon and I never ingested anyone's blood either. Ooh. You are not of Vitra's horde, so you possess no hidden means to fight off the beast. What a fear, then. You were frightened? Yes, I was frightened. I just hid and hoped they wouldn't find me, at least until she told me it was safe to come out. I require a moment to process this input. Let us move apart and discuss our findings. Processing data. Evaluating hypothesis against accumulative evidence. Offered an optimal analysis of each subject's testimony. At each time, their responses conflicted with my assessment. Without identifying the root cause of this conflict, I will be unable to properly define what constitutes strength of heart. Perhaps the heart you seek lies in the conflict itself. Perhaps we should continue the questioning. Perhaps this matter is beyond you. An interesting observation. It is possible my base criteria is an error. In which case, it is imperative that I continue this learning process and repair any fundamental misconceptions. Next, I wish to interact with an individual who endured similar circumstances to Khalsal prior to his transformation. Are you acquainted with any local merchants who had dealings with him? Janaba of Ruvayeda Fibers acknowledged. Sub-destination set. Beta. I don't know, like I can't read today. Like most days. Discuss the Hamsa. Quick. Alpha looks back and forth between Omega and the Hamsa, showing visible concern. Discuss the Hamsa. Halt, Zilly, do not proceed beyond the fence. In this body, birds of that size represent lethal, unthinking threats. They will peck my casing apart, searching for meat that does not exist. Conversely, Alpha can correctly identify my absence of nutritional content. If only he would apply that intelligence towards maintaining a regular feeding schedule. Poor habits adversely affect his mobility. I jump down from here, or do I have to go all the way around? Well, look who it is. I must thank you again for your help in moving our textiles. Recovering from those tragic events has been difficult, of course, but with everyone pulling together, we've managed to get things back up and running. Janabaha, I have come with questions related to that tragedy, specifically your survival of the final days. Although you are similar to Kazal in many respects, he succumbed to the transformation you did not. Why? What is the critical difference between you and him? But I'm sure I don't know. Not especially brave or courageous, if that's what you're asking. Perhaps being focused on protecting our workshops kept me from spinning into panic. Still, I imagine Kalzal would have been feeling the same sense of responsibility. Perhaps the weight of it all is what invited his demise. You were of the same mind, resolved to the same purpose. Yet your strength of heart or of spirit was not equal. If merely emulating the individual is insufficient, then some other unseen factor must be involved. Not to interrupt these deep philosophical musings, but do you think I could ask you a small favor? There's a man by the name of Nashvan who's been helping us out here while he gets back on his feet. I have a feeling he'd benefit from speaking with you. Leave by the eastern exit and you should find him just outside, organizing some new inventory items. Yep. Here. Just the Thavnarian weave. Quick. Alpha puffs out his chest proudly, seeming to imply that his ironworks uniform is the best attire anyone could wear. Just the Thavnarian weave. The equipment being manufactured here, it is worn to perform specific duties. Yes, conceptually it seems analogous to our practice of switching frames to better serve our mission objective. I, for example, did not begin existence with the Omega model. I was originally supplied with standard issue Omicron chassis, serial number M017. In this world, that alphanumeric combination would be considered my given name. Such designations are drawn from our nearly infinite register of celestial bodies to avoid the possibility of duplication. Furthermore, the cluster known as M017 is better expressed in your language as the Omega Nebula, the same word I used to introduce myself to your kind. Though you associate Omega with the advanced weapon construct, it is also my name, and I see no reason to change it, no matter which frame I inhabit. Walking in the doors. There we go. That's all our orders accounted for, and everything looks to be of good quality. Kamala will be pleased. You were with the Scions. You were there. Yes, I'm sure of it. I'll never forget that day. You and your friends helped us escape when people began changing into beast. My own son, he was afflicted. Then that huge monstrosity loomed right over him, and I remember my heart turning to ice, freezing in place. The satrap came to my aid, but then he, too, was gone. Ooh. The memories run together in my mind like flashes from a nightmare. Only the words of your comrades still ring clear. I repeated them over and over like a mantra as I fled for my life. You must run for their sake and your own. It all seemed so surreal, which was probably what saved me from the transformation. The truth of it didn't begin to sink in until the worst of it was over. I have not the words to describe how I felt then, the sorrow, the overwhelming sense of helplessness. I may still be wallowing in misery if not for my old friend Jinabaha. I'd lost my will to work, and he encouraged me with kind words and odd jobs. Now somehow I live again. I am thankful to him, to the courageous Saiwan, and to you. You see your comrades, please let them know their efforts were not in vain. You said you lost your will to work. This signifies a cessation of efforts to maintain basic life functions, yes? What changed to extract you from that stagnation? An offer of work from Jinabaha should mean little to one without the desire to accept it. Was it some manner of mortal instinct? Primal need to survive and thrive? Instinct? No, it wasn't that. If anything, my instincts were telling me to lay down and welcome an end to the pain. Every day I think of my boy's final moments. I think of how scared he must have been. I must have hurt, and I want to scream my throat raw. Satrap 2 still haunts my dreams. I see him being swallowed whole and jolt awake in a cold sweat. But something changed when Jinabaha, I cannot pronounce that. Jinabaha came to me. I looked up and saw that, even without my son or Iwan, the world around me continued to turn. Because that fact grieved me so, I knew it fell to me to live on and remember them. Strange, isn't it? What drives me to rise in the morning is the very sorrow which once crippled me. Now I really must return to my work. To lose this job after everything I just said would be a poor jest indeed. May the sisters keep you well. Sorrow, the emotion generated by mortals when their ideals fail to materialize. This I have observed. Yet when I listen to how Nashvan's sorrow served to rescue him from near-fatal despondency, his logic eludes me. Am I incapable of perceiving the full measure of the heart's properties? My best projections fail to predict our subjects' responses, and despite their almost equal occupational and mental parameters, Jin Baha and Kazal exhibited different reactions to the dynamis effect. I am no closer to recognizing the pattern for involuntary transformations, and your ephemeral mortal spirits confound me as much as if not more than they did before. You consider that there is no pattern to the people afflicted. The hearts of others were ever shrouded in mystery. Perhaps it's time we move on to the next element you wanted clarified. No pattern? You implied that the transformation was not contingent on individual fortitude, but rather a random contribution of environmental factors. Such a theory would explain the otherwise conflicting data. Very well, I shall accept this as provisional conclusion to this part of my investigation. I do, however, expect you to continue supplementing my education of heart-related matters. Level 90, a heartless hypothesis. Complete. Oh, like my drifting. Level 90, goodbye. Omega has selected a new destination. Our destination will be Camp Broken Glass. I desire elaboration on the dealings between the Elsabard contingent and the citizens of Garlemald. The report described the contingent's purpose as the salvation of the local populace. Furthermore, both factions face a common enemy in the Talafaroi. Why did they not immediately combine forces to their mutual benefit? Inconsistency requires closer examination. Initiate teleportation. Teleportation successful. Evaluating immediate environs. A cold weather region by Aetheric standards, but significantly less extreme than a star with ice planet classification. The body should not be unduly impeded. In contrast to Alpha and his uncontrollable shivering, my frame appears highly resistant to low temperatures. Retrieving data. Records indicate that remnants of the contingent force and a number of Imperial citizens yet inhabit this location. We must speak with the representatives from both factions and explore their respective attitudes. Proceed. Omega and Alpha are now accompanying you. Keep them at your side in order to proceed with quest objectives. You can leave your quest companions behind by entering a different area by speaking with them and selecting the option to part ways. If you wish to have your companions join you again, return and speak with them at the original location. Come to see how things are progressing, have you? Can't speak for the overall strategy, but communication with the locals has become a damn sight easier since Julius and his soldiers stepped in to help. Oh, we still face our fair share of distrust, of course. Some folk even think we're enslaving minds with our foreign magics. We have Anima to thank for putting that idea in their heads. But all things considered, I'd say we're doing pretty well. Establishing an open dialogue was the first big step. Query, you consider this level of progress acceptable? The reality of your efforts falls far short of the ideal. If your aim is to provide efficient succor to the local populace, and absorbing their numbers into your command structure would be the optimal path. I wouldn't go that far. We're not looking to take over their nation. If we're to do this the right way, we need to recognize and respect each other's way of life. While it may not be the easiest solution, I agree with the contingent slow and steady approach. I'm just happy we're saving lives. What is this? Shadow from the past. Yes, I know you from Victor Spoils. Have you come to laugh at me, a wretch who chose to lose Lucina and her sister rather than accept your help, the fool who ended up relying upon your charity nonetheless? Well, perhaps I deserve your derision. My compatriots surely scorn my failed conviction. I have shamed my people and brought dishonor upon my nation. I am no better than a kept beast, my pride sold for a bowl of feed. My soul, nay, that you shall not have. I refused your honeyed offers of a new home. This land is where I belong, and this is where I shall remain. You demonstrate opposition to the contingent's overtures. On what basis do you refuse this cooperation? The data suggests the local populace is struggling to produce the bare minimum of sustenance. Have you some secret strategy for survival, or do your orders compel you to accept your present misfortune? What? Must I be mocked by a Magitech toy now? No, I have no secret strategy, no binding orders, but I comport myself as any true Garlean patriot would, uncompromising, unbending. Blast it all. Once again, this input is unanticipated. Let us move aside and process what we have learned. Accessing and analyzing recorded data. Integration complete. I have evaluated this most recent input and made comparisons to our discoveries in Razatan. Consistent only in their inconsistency, the responses from both contingent member and Imperial citizen were highly irrational. Conversely, any Omicron considering their predicaments would have echoed my assessment exactly. Divergence from self-evident logic is key. Hypothesis, the illogical relationship between would-be saviors and suffering populace is another result of the unpredictable nature of mortal hearts. Any property or ability has inherent advantages and disadvantages. Yet never have I encountered such a unique detriment. It appears that those who share your metaphysical capabilities are prone to complicating simple cognitive processes. An undesirable quality. I will, however, persist in furthering my understanding of the subject. Query. Prior to formulating our next step, I wish to know, who is this Lucinia the Imperial mentioned? Acknowledged. To summarize, insufficient data on foreign culture resulted in inadvisable and ultimately fatal action. I witnessed such self-destructive behavior during the course of our planetary conquest. Overwhelmed enemy forces would voluntarily withdraw into perilous regions, leading to a succession of inevitable losses. Tangential data request. I wish to learn about burial customs. The practice has ever seemed nonsensical, but new data suggests it arises from the same source as your cognitive complications. Take me to this Licinia's burial site. It may aid me in stand, bloop, bloop. Energy delivery systems compromised. Core temperature critically low. Warning, immediate heating required. Request apply friction to outer frame. You have to pet it. Blue blip, temperature nominal, energy level stabilizing. The creators of this model must have experienced impaired cognitive reasoning during the design process. On our return, I will request additional climate shielding as well as an accurate temperature sensor array. This will not affect my combat capabilities, but should improve my basic survival rate. Reconfirming sub-destination. In which direction will we find Victor's spoils? Acknowledged. Alpha, you are to remain in close proximity, close enough to envelop me in your feathers. You are permitted to carry me on your back if you so choose. I think way up here, isn't it? Oh, no, it's over here. Okay. I was thinking the wrong place. I just didn't sleep well last night. I'll be long morning. Deceptively deep snowdrift almost defeated me, but we have successfully arrived at the location you indicated. Caution advised. An unknown individual appears to be investigating the object of my interest. You're Eorzea's champion, aren't you? Oh, I never introduced myself, did I? I am Manius, soldier of the 1st Legion and comrade of Eulus. Perhaps you remember me from Tertium. We spoke about collecting ceruleum and again later on after Lord Quintus had passed. Manius, explanation requested. What is the reason for your presence here? It must be the tiniest Magitech weapon no, it's just an oddly shaped communicator, isn't it? In any case, I have nothing worthy to report. I heard that the sisters who used to live in my sector were buried here, so I thought I'd come and pay my respects. Alvanode and Alizé told me the story, complete with profuse apologies, though they were adamant that no amount of remorse could erase the tragedy of what came to pass. Not that my fellow soldiers and I are in any place to judge. We were manipulated, fooled into starting an insurrection which led to countless deaths among our own countrymen. Objection. The casualties incurred through your infighting are distinct from those caused by Ilzabard contingent. Restate, you are justified in seeking restitution from the contingent for causing the deaths of Lucina and her sister. Retaliation for damages sustained is also a logical progression. I can deduce 2 reasons why you do not initiate hostilities with Zilly and her allies. 1, you judge your remaining forces too weakened to contend effectively with the contingent. 2, your emotions are complicating the issue. Tell me, which of these is correct? Well, when you lay it out like that. I'm afraid my answer isn't like to win me any medals, so would you mind keeping this to yourselves? There's the unspoken thought that we're outmatched on the battlefield, certainly, but the real reason I'm not demanding restitution has little to do with weighing the odds. Simple truth is, I'm so caught up in the simple survival that I have no strength to spare for past grievances. Same goes for avenging any comrades we've lost, be that my brothers in arms or Lord Quintus himself. Although it seems everyone has an opinion about the manner of his passing, some say he should have fought until the end, that he abandoned us to the enemy. Others praise him for taking the full burden of responsibility and freeing us to walk our own path. I don't know who's right and who's wrong, but I'm inclined to side with the latter. He gave us the choice of freedom, and that's the choice I made. I could cry and rant and rage, but what would be the point? I'll save my energy for worrying about my next meal, my next task. I need to focus on the ones left behind, on making some kind of life for my comrades and me. If I need to lean on the contingent to do that, then that's what I'll do. Even if their aid comes at a price, I'm willing to pay it. Even amongst your own, there are times when cooperation demands compromise. What matter that they're outsiders? Besides, I think I could grow to like Alphinaud and Alizé. They've reached out to us with kindness and compassion from the very beginning. Summation, your desire to survive, even should it mean allying with the contingent, was a feeling you already harbored. That your side had committed worse atrocities with the logic you invented later to justify your reasoning. Blunt but accurate, I suppose. The heart is honest about what it wants, even if the mind takes a while to reconcile the decision. Well, this has been oddly cathartic. I must return to my duties. There are wild beasts to cull and watchfires to light, supplies to transport. Even without an emperor, there's no rest for an imperial. Be well and stay safe. Upon review of recent input, I have arrived at an unexpected conclusion. I have been formulating my assessments on the premise that it was man who commanded the strength of his heart, but the data suggests the opposite is true. A surge of spirit, of feelings, of emotions can entangle your thoughts to such a degree that even control over your own behavior is compromised. It seems the most counterproductive specification. It also explains why my interactions with mortal subjects have produced more confusion than clarification. It presents a formidable barrier to understanding. My earlier hypothesis has been borne out. Suboptimal operation being conducted here is the result of emotionally compromised reasoning. I'm ready to progress to my third and final query. We'd learn more about those referred to as ancients. It is clear that this group was a crucial factor of the final days, but the information contained in the report was insufficient to form an overview. Elaborates are creations of the ancients and are said to maintain repositories of their knowledge, but my calculations, the base of these moon dwellers, will provide the best source of additional data. Teleport us to their burrow, preferably before my battery freezes over. Your teleportation spell was successful. We appear to have arrived at the location described as Bestway's Burrow. An inspection of the technology in use here would give me detailed insight into the ancients and their civilization. This body, however, lacks my previous frame's advanced observational functionality. I will require external assistance. No, it can't be. It is you. Oh, Zilly, I've missed you so. What is this you brought with you? I saw feathery vision. We've been outfluffed. Pack up the moon. It's all over. Why bother with burrow building bunnies when you could walk around with this adorable avian engineer? Just bake me into a pie and be done with it. Inspect our inventions? Wait, so you're not done with us? I wasn't truly worried, of course, and I certainly wasn't about to roll myself in dough and dive into Cookingway's new oven. If a technical breakdown is what you need, then I am your Loperate. As the resident atmospheric regulation expert, I can field any question or query you might care to pose. Acceptable. I will employ this being to guide me around the facilities. Your presence is not mandatory, even locked within my current chassis. I am still an autonomous construct that has endured hundreds of your life cycles. I am capable of completing this simple objective alone. Outfluffed indeed. Objective complete. Was the tour helpful? What happened to Growing Way? Affirmative. I observed a representative cross-section of the Loperit's engineering capabilities. My guide required more time to confirm the answer to certain questions, but overall we made efficient progress. Conclusion. Extrapolating from the fraction of technology on display, the full spectrum of the Ancients' advancements was at minimum equivalent to a level 4 civilization, a fact which demands further investigation. Despite establishing a near-ideal society, these beings nevertheless harbored a weakness which invited self-destruction. In studying them, I stand to gain a greater understanding of Sir's anomalous decision. Growing Way informed me that another type of ancient-made entity exists upon this satellite, the one they call the Watcher. I would speak to him. Then conserve your ether. We will ride this Argos to our destination as you have suggested. Impedance detected. The creature identified as Argos refuses to acknowledge our presence. Hypothesis: upon our arrival, Growing Way expressed concern that he had been outfluffed. This suggests the existence of a fluff-based hierarchy. My station in such a system would be predictably low, but Argos is adamant and ignoring even Alpha. Its fluffiness level is impossible to gauge. Argos turns to you with an impassive gaze. It seems you will need to intervene. Just think of them as luggage. You're the fluffiest of them all, dear Argos. Argos gives an exasperated snort before motioning to his back. It seems you have permission to climb aboard. You have secured the creature's permission? Curious. Is it your fluffy tail which provides such exemplary standing in the hierarchy? I have allowed myself to become distracted. Let us continue on to the Watcher at once. Oh. Can't stop yawning. I was bemused by the arrival of these small visitors, but I see they are companions of yours. What a rare thing for my abode to be thus crowded. How may I be of service to you? Hello, Watcher. My purpose here is to learn more about the Ancients. I would know of their deeds, their philosophies, the very nature of their hearts. I would understand why the final days was visited upon my home star. Worthy endeavor, but there is another better suited to assisting you with that task. Perhaps you might favor us with a tale or two of the Ancients you met during your travels. My fragmented memories would be a pale substitute indeed for the clarity of your more recent experiences. Yes, I can envision every detail. Your meeting with Venat and Emmet Selk and Hythlodaeus, the sorrow and determination of Hermes. I am a creation of Hydaelyn, and as such I believe the age of the ancients would fade and be forgotten. Yet knowing that their memory lives so vividly within you, it brings me great joy. I pray you keep them close to your heart. At the time of your journey to the past, the one whose essence I embody would have been a scholar at a night or a shame. Had you reason to go there, perhaps you might have met. A man of learning, he was firm friends with Venat. They spent long hours trading theories and debating the laws of the universe. I remember joining her faction as the final days bore down upon us, yet of the events surrounding that tragedy I recall precious little. Hydaelyn wished for the people of your age to decide their own path, thus I suspect my recollection was limited by design. Yet even she could not cut away one persistent memory. Feel most distinctly her sadness at what was to come to pass. That in becoming Hydaelyn's heart, Venat would forever stand apart from the people she so loved. If she were so resolved in her convictions, then he too would share her sleepless vigil over the future yet to unfold. Thus was the vow he made to Venat as her transformation took hold. His fervent wish must have reached her in some fashion, for though his life was drained away by the summoning, he was reborn with a new form and new purpose when I awoke as the Watcher of the Moon. And your heart, you felt, you thought, and in seizing the future for yourselves, you have brought you full circle the saga which Venat began. What you accomplished was no divine miracle, it was but the beacon of hope passed down from one generation to the next. A succession of wishes and prayers reshaping the star into the world we knew you deserved. You have our deepest gratitude. I thank you not only as myself, but as the man I once was, and on behalf of those who devoted themselves to Venat's vision. Bloop bloop. I understand the facts of your story, but not how you have chosen to process them. On what grounds do you speak of Venat with such fondness? By sundering the world, she ultimately guided your kind to victory, yet in doing so caused irreparable damage to its individual members. The full scale of that act is beyond calculation. It is evident, however, that it resulted in a protracted period of suboptimal existence for Emmet Selk and his brethren. Query, if the survival of your kind is the deciding factor in your evaluation, then should you not also admire Hermes and his decision to subject man to a trial, forcing you to change or perish, as was the fate of countless civilizations before you? From my perspective, his determination was similar to that of the Omicron's ancestors, those who first began trading flesh for machines so that our people might stand against the onslaught of aggression from other races. It was an unprecedented attempt accompanied by much failure and sacrifice. Their early experiments were crude, primitive. Had they not made those first advances, however, we would have remained vulnerable to our environment. The violence would have utterly consumed us. What of Emmet Selk himself? Judging by your retelling, he was a benevolent ally saddled with tragic fate. Yet I remember the years when my instruments fed me data from events across the entire star. During that time, I witnessed as Asians engineer multiple instances of cataclysmic strife. These calamities, as you know them, were responsible for planet-wide destruction. A man whose endgame relied upon the extinction of all modern mortals must, by definition, be your worst enemy. I require an answer. As a being of heart and soul, how do you classify each of these pivotal figures? From your perspective, which of them was most justified in their actions? They were all justified in their own way. Venat, Hermes, Emmet Selk, none of them were. I don't know. Like, she knew. He didn't have all the information. He became overly sentimental, I guess. His whole point. None of them were. How could I handle it differently? I think I understand. Seek a definitive answer, yet based on our experiences, Zilly and I might develop a very different opinions. the same fashion, you are free to form your own thoughts on the matter. Do not be so swift to consider them without merit. Do not have my own thoughts on the matter. I assess each situation with the same logic pathways available to every Omicron. Even if 1,000 Omicrons were asked to analyze the same event, they would all return the same result, regardless of individual experience. There is no strength to be found in fractured reasoning. Nonetheless, I find your input valuable, recording data alongside interview results. This concludes my investigation into the incomplete elements of the final day's report. I will reanalyze the accumulated information and examine the factors which led to Sir's incomprehensible decision. Let us return to Thomazine. I've been made aware of your coming. Please use the lift here. Wow. Oh, there you are, right at the last moment. Your journey with Omega was properly educational, I hope. We'd planned to ask you all about it and that mystery transmission besides, but I'm afraid something urgent has come up. Seems one of our Ironworks associates fouled up a job elsewhere, and Jesse needs Wedge and me to rush in and lend a hand. There's an airship already waiting for us out in the harbor. In fact, do you think you could escort us over there and talk as we walk? Acceptable. I am fully capable of speech during ambulation. Figured you might be, right? Let's get a move on then. Oh. So you've cleared up all those points of confusion then? I had mistakenly classified your intangible heart as an ability of some kind. An uncanny power that Omicrons could neither learn nor even measure. Even now, its full nature yet eludes my comprehension. Based upon our investigations, however, I've decided to alter my definition. A phenomenon which influences one's interpretation of reality. That is as close to an answer as I have found. Accordingly, Sir's actions upon meeting Meteon strongly indicate the presence of a heart. Sir did not follow routine logic, but formulated an independent assessment based upon the reality it perceived. It felt that the best recourse for the Omicrons was to cease their expansion and terminate all functions. Well, here's our ship. Alright, we need to be going, but first I'll hold you to your bargain, Omega. Time you told us what was in that transmission from the flight logs. Acknowledge, I will uphold the terms of our agreement. Recording salvage from Ragnarok was a simple one. Message is so basic, in fact, that the time spent listening to it may result in a net loss of value. Shall I continue? Now you're just teasing. Tell us the message already. Acknowledge. Converting dialect coding to local language. To whomever receives this message out here in the vast reaches of the cosmos. Someone, I hope, who looks up at the stars with the same wistful gaze as mine. To you I say, forge ahead. May all our tomorrows be blessed with joy. This message had no designated recipient. It lacks purpose. The concept of joy is overly abstract. The vocal supplication to manifest said joy is unrealistic in its optimism. If based upon their expressions, my assessment of the transmission's value conflicts with its apparent impact. And still, I fail to understand you, sir. Your heart still confuses me. Was termination of everything the correct course? How did you arrive at this conclusion? Defies all my attempts at reasoning. I was designed to evolve. If I continue to learn, the probability that I eventually comprehend this phenomenon is greater than zero. So I will put the dilemma of your decision aside for now. And continue my existence upon this distant star. As I dwell among these many life forms, so will I continue to piece together the complete shape of their mortal hearts. That's sweet. I must document their progress. Your contribution to my education is appreciated. Indeed, I have amassed a satisfying quantity of valuable data. Now that our negotiated business is complete, however, Alpha and I will return to traveling the world. Drawing on recent experience, I am confident we can expand the radius of our ventures by a significant margin. We need not limit ourselves to Eorzea. I am now familiar with Sharlayan and Razatan and would also like to revisit the freezing climes of Garlem Bloop. Neglected to instruct Biggs and Wedge to upgrade my climate shielding, I will reroute my request to Deputy President Jesse. Engaging ambulation and parting salutations. Farewell, Zilly. Alpha gives a vigorous shake and draws forth a scrap of paper from under his wing. Way. Seems he wants you to have it. Perhaps this is his way of thanking you? Level 90. Goodbye. Complete. Swiftly, Alpha. The road is long and we have barely begun our journey. New chapter of New Game Plus has been added.